They say you never forget the moment you realize your family views you as replaceable. For me, that realization came on Christmas Eve, surrounded by twinkling lights, sugar cookies, and a kind of forced cheer that often hides deeper family fractures. My name is Greg. I'm 39. And until that night, I believed I understood how far my parents' favoritism could go. I was wrong. I have two kids, Emma, who's 11, and Lucas, who's 9. They're thoughtful and kind, the kind of kids who still write thank you notes and believe in small bits of magic. They're not perfect, but they're good kids. My wife, Melissa, and I have worked hard to give them stability, affection, and holiday traditions I never had growing up. I thought I had left the dysfunction behind and built something healthier, but the past has a way of resurfacing. We live about 2 hours away from my parents. Every year, despite a strained relationship, we still made the drive for the big Christmas Eve gathering. My mom insisted everyone wear red. My dad poured spiked eggnog like it was sacred. The living room would fill with my siblings, their partners, and all the grandkids. My older brother Ryan always arrived late, full of flair, usually with his son Carter, and some excuse about last-minute work that somehow still allowed time for a fresh haircut and a designer jacket. Ryan has always been the favorite. He could forget birthdays or skip family events and still be welcomed like a hero. Meanwhile, I was the one who helped repaint my parents' kitchen last summer. I took time off work to drive my mom to surgery when Ryan was too busy. None of that stuck. Ryan could post a picture of his coffee and my mom would comment, "So proud of my boy." It used to hurt. Eventually, I learned to expect less. That year, though, felt different from the start. We arrived early. Emma helped arrange cookies, while Lucas tried to sneak one when he thought no one was watching. Melissa poured hot cocoa and smiled politely through my mom's comments about how well-behaved the kids were for now. I should have noticed something was wrong when I saw the presents under the tree. There were a lot of them. Big, small, shiny, carefully wrapped. But none had Emma's or Lucas's names on them. I told myself they were probably hidden somewhere else, maybe saved for later. My mom used to do that for suspense. Then Ryan showed up, late as always. Carter, now 13, followed him with the confidence of someone who knew he was the center of attention. Ryan greeted everyone loudly, hugged our parents, and ignored me. Carter walked straight to the tree and said, "Whoa, that's all for us," my dad said with a wink. "For the grandkids who made us proud this year." My stomach tightened. I didn't want to assume anything, but Melissa squeezed my hand. She'd heard it too. My mom gathered everyone in the living room, visibly excited. She announced they wanted to do something special to honor the grandkids who had really stood out, top of their class, helpful, impressive. I looked down at Emma and Lucas. Emma's smile faded. Lucas shifted uneasily. Ryan stood behind Carter, clearly enjoying the moment. The first gift went to Carter. He opened it to reveal an iPad. Then came expensive sneakers, a gaming headset, a drone. Every gift was his, each with a different tag, all addressed to him. Lucas leaned over and whispered, "Are ours later?" I didn't know how to answer. Then Carter held up the drone and laughed. "Guess you didn't deserve one," he said, looking directly at Emma and Lucas. I waited for my parents to step in, to correct him, to acknowledge what was happening. Instead, my mom laughed lightly and said, "He's just joking." Emma looked like she was trying not to cry. Lucas stared at the floor. Melissa looked pale, like she wanted to speak but couldn't find the words. I didn't explode. I didn't yell. I stood up calmly and said, "Come on, we're going home." My mom looked confused. "Don't be silly. Dinner's almost ready." "We're not hungry," I said evenly. "Get your coats." Emma didn't say anything. Lucas followed quietly. As we left, Ryan muttered, "Drama queen." The drive home was silent. Lucas fell asleep. Emma stared out the window, anyone her tears catching the light. Melissa sat stiffly in the front seat. I replayed everything in my head, the gifts, the laughter, the smiles, and most of all, the look on my daughter's face when she realized she didn't matter to them. That night, after the kids were asleep, I sent a short message. It wasn't emotional or angry, just final. "Don't invite us again. We're not your punchline." There was no reply. The next morning, the only notification I received was a pharmacy reminder for Emma's allergy medication. Melissa handed me coffee and asked if I was okay. I nodded, but I wasn't. I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was quietly furious, and underneath that was shame. Not for leaving, but for staying as long as I had. That Christmas wasn't the first time my parents had overlooked my kids, but it was the first time I saw Emma understand it too. We tried to focus on our own holiday games, baking, gifts, but something felt off. Then in January, my mom revived the family group chat to plan Carter's ski lodge birthday weekend. Ryan immediately agreed and suggested I help pay, referencing a laptop story that wasn't even true. No one corrected him. I left the chat. My mom called it immature. I replied with one word, noted. Weeks later, Emma was selected for her school STEM fair. We celebrated, helped her plan, and I posted a simple photo saying I was proud. No response from my parents. Then my mom publicly called Carter the smartest grandchild. Emma saw it. When I confronted my mom, she brushed it off and said Emma would get over it. Then she added, maybe if you raised your kids to stand out more. I hung up. In February, a letter arrived from my parents, criticizing me for cutting ties and ending with a note saying they loved Emma and Lucas even if they don't always earn it. That line echoed in my head for weeks. The guilt hit hard. Not because I was wrong, but because I had let my kids care about people who couldn't love them properly. Then something shifted, not dramatically, but quietly. I stopped waiting for validation. If my family wouldn't support my kids, I would build that support myself. I volunteered at Emma's STEM club. I joined Lucas for early morning soccer workshops. I found a local dads group focused on community. I stepped up at work, took on leadership roles, and was finally recognized. Melissa flourished too, growing her freelance consulting work with confidence. Cutting them off still hurt. That part surprised me. But for the first time, the hurt wasn't running my life anymore. Of course it did. Ending contact created space to breathe, to think, to rebuild. But that didn't mean the past went silent. In early March, my sister Katie sent me a message on Instagram. Not a call, not even a text, just a DM. It included a screenshot of a photo Melissa had posted of Emma's completed solar oven project. Emma stood beside it, smiling, sunlight reflecting off the aluminum panels. The caption read, "My little innovator, first place in the district showcase." Underneath the screenshot, Katie wrote, "So we're just pretending none of this drama ever happened now?" I didn't respond. 10 minutes later, another message arrived. Carter wanted to congratulate Emma. He's matured, you know? I still said nothing. I knew exactly what this was. It wasn't reconciliation. It was a test, an attempt to pull me back in so they could reframe everything as a misunderstanding. I deleted the message. A week later, Ryan called. I almost ignored it, but curiosity won. "Hey, bro," he said casually, like nothing had happened. "Long time." I waited. "So listen," he continued. "Mom and Dad are planning a family Easter brunch. They were wondering if you guys might want to come. Clear the air. Start fresh." "Did they ask you to call me?" I asked. "No," he said quickly. "I just thought it was time." "Time to clear the air about what?" I asked. He paused. "Come on, man. You got really sensitive over a gift mix-up. Carter's a kid. He jokes, and Mom and Dad love your kids. They just show it differently." I let the silence sit. Then I asked, "Do you even remember what Mom wrote in that letter?" He laughed. "Letters? Who reads letters anymore?" I hung up. The call stayed with me, though, because this wasn't just about me anymore. Easter was coming, and Emma and Lucas had already asked if we'd be seeing the larger family. They didn't miss the tension, but they missed the sense of belonging. I wanted to give them that feeling, but not through forced gatherings or shallow apologies. So Melissa and I decided to create something better. We hosted our own Easter brunch. We invited 3 of Emma's STEM friends and their families. Lucas brought 2 kids from his soccer team. Melissa invited a coworker who was new in town and had twin girls. We bought folding tables, string lights, dyed eggs, and cooked far more food than necessary. I even borrowed a bunny costume from the community center and spent 2 hours walking around the backyard handing out treats. And honestly, it was the best holiday we'd had in years. There was laughter, warmth, and ease. No forced politeness, no passive remarks, just people enjoying each other's company. At one point, Emma ran up to me, flushed and smiling. "Dad," she said, "this is the best Easter ever." That's when I knew we weren't just walking away from something. We were building something new. But the past wasn't finished. 2 days after Easter, a certified letter arrived from a law office. When I opened it, my stomach dropped. It was a notice titled Revocation of Financial Agreement. At the bottom, under my father's signature, were 5 words that changed everything. Reconsider your attitude or else. At first, I didn't fully understand what I was reading. I sat at the kitchen table, letter in one hand, untouched coffee in the other. Melissa stood behind me, reading silently. The letterhead was from a mid-sized law firm a couple of towns over. The language was formal and cold, almost exaggerated in its professionalism. It claimed that any future financial support agreements between my parents and me were now void. It stated that Gregory M. had violated expectations of respect and contribution. It ended by saying that financial considerations could be renegotiated if I chose to re-engage appropriately. Melissa looked at me. What financial agreement? There wasn't one, at least not on paper. Years earlier, though, I had helped my parents when they were in serious trouble. Back in 2016, my dad's construction supply business fell behind on taxes. A filing error turned into penalties that grew quickly. He was facing more than $40,000 in back taxes. He called me frantic and embarrassed. At the time, Melissa and I had just sold our first house and had some savings. Without hesitation, I wrote an $18,000 check to cover the immediate deadline and co-signed a short-term loan to help restructure the rest. I never asked for repayment. He promised to make it right, but I didn't push. That's what you did for family, or so I believed. Over time, the story shifted. Comments started slipping out. We've always supported you. We helped you get where you are. They rewrote history, and I let it happen. Until now. Now they were using it as leverage. Melissa read the letter again and placed it down carefully. They're preparing for something, she said. She was right. This wasn't emotional anymore. It was calculated. If they were formalizing things legally, they weren't just cutting me off. They were positioning themselves. That night, I pulled out an old storage box filled with paperwork, bank statements, emails, a folder labeled Dad IRS Loan 2016. I had kept it out of habit, not suspicion. But now, everything mattered. There it was, the co-signed loan, payment records, wire transfer receipts, and an email from my dad with the subject line, "Need help just until we rebuild." In it, he wrote, "I don't know what I'd do without you. I'll make this right once the new contract comes through." That promise may have disappeared in their version of events, but I still had proof. Over the next week, I acted quietly. I contacted a lawyer I'd worked with before, Jillian, methodical, practical, and sharp. I sent her everything. She called the next morning. "This isn't a termination," she said. "It's a setup." She explained they were trying to frame me as the problem to preempt any claim I might make. "But," she added, "you have a very strong case. That email alone could cause serious issues for them." For the first time, I felt clarity, not satisfaction, just understanding. Melissa and I focused on protection, not retaliation. We secured finances, updated paperwork, and talked to the kids in simple, honest terms. We didn't overshare, just enough. "Are we allowed to miss them?" Lucas asked. "Yes," I said, "and it's okay to feel sad, but family should be safe." They handled it better than I ever did at their age. Meanwhile, I documented everything. Old messages, comments, emails, voicemails. Jillian drafted a formal response disputing the claims and directing all communication through legal channels. 2 days after it was delivered, things shifted again. Melissa's sister called to warn us. My parents had started speaking to extended family and friends, quietly rewriting the narrative. According to them, I wasn't setting boundaries. I was unraveling. "She always coddled him," my dad said on another call. "Now he's acting like we owe him everything." Around the same time, Melissa started getting messages from 2 mutual friends, people we used to see at church, asking if we were okay. "They're starting a smear campaign," she said. What they didn't realize was that they weren't dealing with the same son they once pressured into silence. They were dealing with a father, a husband, someone who finally understood the pattern and had the documentation to prove it. The opening didn't come from my parents. It came from Ryan. And arrogance has a way of creating opportunities when people least expect it. It was April. I was scrolling LinkedIn during a short break at work when a post caught my eye. Ryan had tagged himself in an announcement from a mid-sized investment group. "Proud to announce our latest partner collaboration with McTavish Build Group. Excited to lead expansion into the residential solar market." McTavish Build Group. The name immediately stood out. That was the company my dad had tried to land a contract with back in 2016 and failed. He'd said losing that bid nearly destroyed his cash flow that year. Now Ryan was announcing a partnership under his name, connected to solar construction. I clicked through. The partnership was brand new. Then I saw it. One of McTavish's promotional graphics showed a concept rendering of a smart solar cabin. The caption mentioned inspiration from real-world STEM innovators. At the bottom was a diagram, nearly identical to Emma's solar oven project. It wasn't a direct copy. It was cleaner, professionally drawn, adjusted just enough. But the structure, the reflector angles, the heat absorption design, it matched Emma's notes exactly. I sat there, staring at the screen, and started connecting the dots. Weeks earlier, Melissa had posted Emma's project publicly. Someone had seen it. Someone had taken it. Ryan had taken my daughter's work, presented it as his own, tied it to a business deal, and stood to profit from it. That's when the plan became clear. Not just to defend ourselves, not just to protect Emma, but to take control of the situation completely. When I contacted Jillian again, my heart wasn't racing. I wasn't angry or panicked. I was focused. I sat across from her in her quiet office, sunlight coming through half-closed blinds, and laid everything out. The LinkedIn post, the McTavish graphic, Emma's original sketches, the dated photos, Melissa's social media timeline. Jillian looked at the materials and said plainly, "This is theft, and because it's being used commercially, it's intellectual property infringement, possibly fraud." I nodded. I don't want money. I want it undeniable. I want it on record. She leaned back. Then we start with McTavish, a cease and desist. If they're smart, they'll panic and pull out. And Ryan, she said with a thin smile, is going to learn what public accountability feels like. Over the next 2 weeks, everything moved quickly. Jillian drafted a detailed legal notice outlining the original creation date of Emma's project, the competition win, the time-stamped posts, and the near-identical rendering used by McTavish. We didn't email it. We sent it by courier directly to McTavish's legal department and their CEO. 4 days later, I received a call from Stephen Day, McTavish's director of operations. He apologized immediately. He sounded shaken. "We were unaware the design came from a minor school project," he said. "We trusted our partner's submission." "You didn't ask where it came from?" I asked. "Mr. Ryan M. represented it as his own prototype," he admitted. I told him plainly that if this went to court, Emma would be there, standing next to the model she built at our kitchen table with foil and a shoebox. They didn't argue. They acted. McTavish froze the partnership, pulled the materials, and published a public apology the next day. They acknowledged the design belonged to a young innovator named Emma and announced a $25,000 donation to her school's science program. Emma read the statement several times. "They said my name," she whispered. Lucas shouted from the hallway, "You're famous." Melissa cried. I stayed focused because Ryan hadn't backed down. He posted a passive-aggressive message online about jealousy and real creators. He told family members we had manipulated a child's project to damage his career. What he didn't realize was that McTavish's response wasn't just about public image. Their lawyers launched a formal review. 2 weeks later, Ryan received a demand for full disclosure of past work and immediate termination of the collaboration. His name vanished from their site. The LinkedIn post disappeared. Through a mutual contact, I heard that several other companies quietly paused discussions with him. No one wanted to be associated with someone exposed for stealing from a 12-year-old. Then Melissa had another idea. She contacted Emma's school principal and explained the situation. The principal immediately saw the value of the story. A local news station followed. Within days, Emma was filmed in her classroom, explaining her project and how it felt when someone else tried to claim it. The segment ended with a reminder that innovation doesn't only come from boardrooms, it often starts in classrooms. The story spread locally. The school received praise, donations increased. The PTA called it the best publicity they'd ever had. My mom called shortly after. She didn't deny what happened. She just said, "You didn't have to embarrass the family." I laughed. "We're not finished." I wasn't exaggerating. Jillian filed a small claims case over the 2016 loan. It wasn't about the money. It was about the record. My dad ignored the notice. The hearing went forward without him. The evidence was clear. Judgment was entered. $18,742.31 plus fees and interest. I mailed a copy with a short note, since financial agreements matter so much to you. That same week, Ryan's situation was mentioned in a national STEM education roundup. One sentence noted the partnership had been terminated after it was discovered the prototype came from a middle school student. My parents didn't attend Memorial Day weekend. Neither did Ryan. We didn't mind. Emma earned a STEM scholarship for a summer university program. Lucas made goalie for his league. Melissa's consulting work grew rapidly after business owners saw the story. I was promoted into a leadership role at work, with more responsibility and influence. At my first all-hands meeting, I ended the presentation with a slide that read, "Always give credit." Some people didn't understand it, but we did. We never spoke to my parents again. Not after the ruling, not after the donation, not after the news story. They weren't confronted anymore. They were simply left behind. And that silence, the absence of access, reaction, and defense, was the one thing they couldn't control. As for Ryan, the last I heard, he was rebranding. Emma, meanwhile, is building a solar-powered compost system for the school garden. This time with a patent filing already in motion. Because some work can't be erased, some ideas can't be taken, and some families don't break. They rebuild, stronger than before.